Hi, Tanner. You've- yeah. Oh, well, then you turn it off. Hi, Pamela. Wayne just whistled to everyone. Nicely done, Wayne.
Yes. I mean, he is a get it done kind of a guy.
That's funny.
Am I using my keyboard?
Yes. Not necessary, but you can.
So we avoid the funny moment. I was just tying knots with you. Tying ourselves up in knots. Yes, sir.
Yes. So glad. It's good to finally have something positive. Shabbat shalom. I know. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. They're not ready yet.
Not ready.
You get them in the mood.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Come on, you guys. It's not good. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to Temple Israel. We're so glad you could be here with us tonight. There's a lot of faces that we haven't seen in a while. I know that some of you are watching from home that also haven't been able to be here for a while. So whatever is bringing you here tonight, wherever you are, we're just so glad that you're able to join us in Shabbat. And so we're going to start by welcoming each other with the words of Hine Matov, which can be found on page 10. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. So as we do every time when we're together, we start our service with the lighting of Shabbat candles and by saying our blessings. And this week the Shabbat candles are being lit in honor of Molly Wallace, who was going to have her bat mitzvah this weekend, but then she decided to go to Israel to have it instead. So we're going to invite her grandmother and her aunts to come and help us light those candles in her honor. And our candle blessings can be found in the beginning of your Siddur on page 2. Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And then, Lynn, if I can ask you to lift the glass. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. And as Rachel reaches for the challah, I just want to point out her amazing shirt that you too can have if you'd like, and you can wear it to services because clearly it says, "This is my Shabbat shirt," so it could also be your Shabbat shirt. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Thank you so much. So we'll turn to maybe another opener or two just to make sure that our hearts and our heads are in it. And I'm going to have you turn to page 10. And in the middle of the page, we'll sing Yedid Nefesh. That's good. And this is one that if you've sung it with me before, you know, there's sort of a fun part in the middle. So I will cue you when the fun part comes, just in case you've forgotten. Yedi nefesh av harachman, yedi nefesh av harachman, meshochav decha, eretz onecha, meshochav decha, ya lai 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 lai, eretz onecha. Oh, that was good. Yarutz avdecha, kemo Yishtachaveh yalai, yalalai el mul hadracha. Let's do it once more from the beginning. You'll get it this time. Yedi nefesh av harachman, yedi nefesh av harachman, meshochav decha, eretz onecha. Meshochav decha, yalalai lai lai lai, eretz onecha. Yarutz avdecha, kemo aya. Yishtachaveh yalai, yalalai lai lai lai, el mul hadracha. adracha. Beautiful. You know, when we come together to celebrate Shabbat, there are different songs that we sing and different teachings to try and help us really know that the Shabbat spirit is with us and to help us feel like we are in this place where we can just let go of the week and be able to have this special time together. One of them we sing on page 24, and it begins with the words Shalom Aleichem, a welcoming in the Shabbat angels who we believe come into our midst every time that we come together and celebrate Shabbat. We welcome these angels who we believe are coming to support us and make this time even a little more special that we spend together. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Join together on page 29. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself.
There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless. Please rise. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da da. Yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. We read responsively on the bottom of 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. And we join in words of Shema on 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbacha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together, and singing the song that our ancestors sang at the shores of the sea on page 40, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha, Bailim Adonai, Mi Chamocha, Nedar B'Kodesh, Norati Lo, Osei Fele, Norati Lo, Osei Fele, Mi Chamocha, Bailim Adonai, Mi Chamocha, Nedar B'Kodesh. Mi Chamocha is our song of freedom, but in evening services, we follow it with the words of Hashkivenu, reminding us that each time we are given freedom, we are still in this experience where we may feel afraid and unsure of what comes next and what to do. And so the words of Hashkivenu ask God that wherever freedom takes us, that we should be covered with a shelter of peace anywhere we go. Hashkivenu on page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu, l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu, Lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. At the top of page 45, it says, "We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time." Last week, we had a very special bar mitzvah service on Saturday morning with a young man who chose to write interpretations to all of the prayers in English, and he shared in introducing tefillah something very much like these thoughts, really reminding us that throughout ancestors, God has been revealed to us and appeared to each of us in different ways. And God appeared to each of our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah and Rachel, each of us in different ways, and continues to appear to each of us in different ways today. So however it is that God speaks to you, even if God has not yet spoken to you, we join together on page 46, and we try to find that still, small, silent voice within us, hoping that that's the God who is speaking to us in our day. Please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevi Geula Livnei v'Neihem, L'ma'an Shemo ba'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Mechakel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom melach, Melech mimit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lechayot hakom, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed. And we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai,
Ha'el HaKadosh. On the top of 55, we read together, "May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Please be seated, and we turn together in a prayer for peace with the words of Shalom Rav on page 60. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Ki atah melech adon, lechol shalom. Atah melech adon, lechol shalom. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim La'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol etz uvachosha bishlomecha. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim La'olam. So we'll turn now all the way forwards in our prayer books to page 253. We'll take a few moments at this time to think of those members of our families and our community who are in need of healing prayers. So if there's someone who you're thinking of at this time, someone who would appreciate knowing that their names were being shared in this space, I would invite you to say them at this time. Thank you. Thank you. So we're thinking too of Lisi Weinstein, we're thinking of Arlene Alper, and thinking of all the names that we're just saying in our hearts. We join in the words of the Misha Berach on 253. Misha Berach Avotenu Mikol of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor Bracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'yakom Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. So 1 week ago, just an hour or two before Shabbat services, we're going to begin. Rabbi Harold Kushner passed away. You may have heard of Rabbi Kushner before. He is famous for having written the book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. But of course, he did not write the book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. He wrote the book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And it would seem maybe that those two little letters should not make that big of a difference, but they do. Because when Rabbi Kushner wrote his book, he was assuming from the get-go what he already knew, that sometimes bad things are going to happen to good people. And that if you start asking the question of why, not only are you probably never going to find a very good answer, but even if you find an answer, it is probably not going to make you feel any better. Rabbi Kushner was a conservative rabbi, but his schooling was very similar to what Rabbi Michael and I experienced. And so I know that when he was in seminary that he studied all of the Jewish philosophers. He studied Saadia Gaon and Maimonides and Spinoza and learned all of these different Jewish ideas about who God is. I know also that he studied theodicy, which is the idea of why evil exists in the world. But when Rabbi Kushner and his wife, when their son was diagnosed with a fatal illness and died when he was 14, he realized that everything he learned in seminary was useless. And so he decided that he would write this book, and in doing so, he turned to the book of Job. Now, some of you may also have read the book of Job before. It's a more difficult read than When Bad Things Happen to Good People, though you should try and read both of them at some point. And the book of Job is about a good person, Job, to whom very, very bad things happen to. And the beginning of the book is about all of these terrible things that happen to him, but the majority of the book is about what happens once all of the bad things have occurred and all of his friends come and talk to him and try to make him feel better. And they all do a terrible job of it. One friend after another just makes Job feel worse. Because what each of them keeps doing, and they're being very well-intentioned, but they're all trying to explain to Job either why maybe it was his fault, something he did, or why at least it wasn't God's fault, or they're trying to give him some sort of reason behind it. But all Job needed was for someone to sit by his side and just sit there. Maybe hold his hand or give him a hug, or tell him that even though these terrible things had happened, that he himself was not terrible. What Rabbi Kushner explains, and he does it a little more clearly than the book of Job does itself, where Rabbi Kushner explains that really what Job needed was community. Community was the only thing that could help when all of these terrible things occurred. Now, I did not read Rabbi Kushner really at all when we were in rabbinical school. I didn't read him until after, but when I did, I was glad to find that in many ways, Rabbi Kushner and I, we share the same ideas about who we believe God is and about why evil exists in the world. But what I was frustrated by is that at no point in everything that Rabbi Kushner wrote, and everything that he did to explain how important community is, at no point did he say, but how do we build a community like that? And when I ask, how do we build a community like that? I'm not just talking about the royal we. I'm not saying, how does one build a community like that? But I'm saying, Temple Israel, how do we build a community like that? Where we know that if someone, a very good person in our midst, has had terrible, bad things happen to them, that we can be the community upon whom they rely. Now I know, and especially looking out at everyone who is here this evening, I can almost guarantee that every one of you at some point has had someone who is close to you, a friend or a family member who has experienced some sort of loss, and that you were there for them. I know, because I know you people. I know that that's what you do, and that you probably have not been like Job's friends. You probably have had those moments where you were really able to be there for someone who was close to you and been able to support them through these terrible moments. But can we do that? Can we, as this Temple Israel community, can we be the kind of whole community that knows how to show up for someone who maybe isn't our friend or isn't our family, but is still one of us when they experience these very bad things? And I will say quite honestly that I feel like we've spent our entire careers trying to answer that question, and many of you as board members and as staff and as lay leaders, you've tried to help us solve this question because it's not easy, especially in a congregation as large as ours. But I will tell you that this week after Rabbi Kushner died, and I was asking myself this question once again, how do we build a community that can be a support like this? I looked at the Torah portion, and I feel like maybe I found the answer. And that's a little bit strange because this is a tough Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Emor. And this is not like the Torah portion that B'nai Mitzvah children fight to get. Rabbi Michael was actually telling me that earlier this week he was studying with a child who's going to have Emor next year who is not here because we would have to tell him it's not a great Torah portion. And then Rabbi Michael was just trying desperately to find like 10 good lines that he could relate to a 13-year-old. But at least right in the middle of this Torah portion, sort of if you leave apart this all this stuff about priests and who they can have relationships with and about the people who you're allowed to stone. I mean, it's really kind of a nasty Torah portion. But right in the middle of it, there's this section that talks about the holidays. And it talks about the big holidays. It focuses on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and then it talks about the pilgrimage festivals, Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot. And it's a little bit odd that we would be reading about these holidays right now. In part because, the Torah, there's not that many words in the Torah, and so the Torah doesn't really like to repeat things. And the Torah has talked about these holidays before, so it's a little bit strange that it's repeating them again. But also, I know the Jewish calendar changes for us every year, but it really doesn't change. So you can actually guarantee that whenever you read this Torah portion, it's never going to be close to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's never going to be close to Sukkot. And even though we are sort of sandwiched between Pesach and Shavuot right now, it's not really close enough to either holiday for it to make sense for why would we be talking about these holidays now. So I started thinking, what is it about these holidays, about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot? What is it about these holidays that is so important and that differentiates them from anything else? And I'll tell you, it's not just that we worship on those holidays or that we celebrate with families or that we have mostly delicious food. It's not about any of the customs. When you think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur at Temple Israel, or really any synagogue you could go to around the world, what's it that makes these holidays different? Yes, exactly. It's when everyone shows up. Those are the holidays that if you look around the room, everyone is going to be there. And even though that may not be true for us on the pilgrimage festivals, we know that by the fact that in the Torah they were pilgrimage festivals, that means those are the holidays that everyone would be showing up. Everyone would be trying to go to the temple because those are the holidays that are about community. Those are the times when we look around the room and we make sure that we still see all the same faces that we saw last year. We are going to notice if Linda and Phil are not sitting in their spots, and if they aren't, we're going to worry about them. We are going to notice if someone doesn't look maybe as healthy as they looked last year. We are going to notice if there is a point in the service where someone starts crying. It is about being present and being in community. That's what actually makes us the kind of people who are able to show up for others in their time of need, because we know each other and we know what it means to be present and just to be there. And I will say, this is not a guilt trip for our snowbirds, because I just want to give amazing credit, and especially I'm looking at the Goldbergs and the Marglisses, our snowbirds who I know are actually here every week, even though they're not here. And I know that they're here watching on the screen because they will tell me afterwards, and so have many of you, if they look and they're like, we saw Ella, but where's Maya? Where's her mom? Is she okay? Because that's what community does, is we notice if someone else isn't there. This is what it takes to be able to support other people. It's not about any sort of programs that we could have. It's not about how many calls that we can make. It's about showing up so you can look around the room and know who is here, and know who looks sad, and know who looks like they are hurting. That's what it takes to truly be the kind of community that Rabbi Kushner imagined could be the kind of people who show up. Now, I know, I have been told before that the rabbi is not supposed to get in front of you and guilt you for not coming every week. And I'm not guilting you. All right, maybe I'm guilting you a little bit, but here's the thing. It's not just you. This has been Jews throughout history. And actually, in this week's Torah portion, you also get a little help just in case you can't show up. You see, right smack dab in the middle of the section about the holidays, there is this really weird sort of, it's like an ellipses almost, that starts talking about tzedakah. And this is also a strange thing. We talk about tzedakah so many other times. Why is it that the Torah would mention it here, just like shmush between the section about the holidays? And this really bothers Rashi, who is this, amazing medieval commentator. And Rashi is like, why would this little piece about how we give a certain kind of tzedakah be shmushed in there? And he explains the reason this is in there is because it was understood that sometimes people can't show up. And that if, in fact, you couldn't show up to those holidays, if you couldn't make pilgrimage and come to those festivals and be here all the time, as long as you gave this kind of tzedakah, it counts. If you can't be there, then your job is to somehow give so that others can, so that you are still caring for the community. And so we're taught that even if we can't show up, there's a way to show up in other ways through your generosity, whether it is through the way that you are giving to support others who aren't able to be a part of the community, or whether it's giving of your time, whether you're the person who writes happy birthday notes to someone who is celebrating a big birthday and may be alone, whether you're the person who always makes sure to arrange for the shiva tray because no one should go hungry when they are in a time of mourning. These are the ways that through generosity we can give back in the same way. If we do all of these things, what if we could be the kind of community that Rabbi Kushner envisioned? He offered this quote. He says, being sick or being healthy is not a matter of what God decides that we deserve. The better question is, if this has happened to me, what do I do now? And who is there to help me do it? My friends at Temple Israel, may we learn how to be the ones who help others do it. May we learn to be the ones who are able to be there as the kind of community through our generosity or through our presence for the people who need it most. Because there are people in our community who are very, very good people, and to whom sometimes bad things happen. Let us be the kind of community that can lift them up in the good and the bad. Shabbat Shalom. So I'm going to ask you now, if you will, to please rise, and we are going to turn all the way to the end of our prayer books to page 282 at the bottom. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'artzot, velo samanu כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. on page 287.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech. May we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear, doubt, and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
So at this point in our service, we take a few moments and we recall with love the name of one taken from us in recent days, and our hearts go out to his family in sympathy as we recall his name, Don Heath. And we now recall the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat, and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or in the Wall of Honor for perpetual memorial. Sylvia Altman, Mendel Bender, Bertha Bernard, Simon Bienenstock, Mary Bossy, Dr. Raymond M. Charnas, Fanny Cohn, Marlene Katz-Crystal, Rachel Freed Davidson, Phyllis R. Dubinsky, Gussie Edlin, Arthur D. Epstein, Shirley H. Esrock, Elaine C. Fishman, Julius L. Freund, Morris Moshe Glazer, Nat J. Green, Theodore Ted Greenberg, Louis Guggenheim, Carl Hanschier, Dr. David W. Hellman, Ron Hirschberg, Phil Isserman, Ralph Kalish Jr., Edith Kalterman, George H. Kaufman, Martin Codner, Kay Levin, Irene Strauss-Littman, Clara K. London, Robin Lynn Lowy, Stephen Marglis, Lois H. Martin, Phyllis Milner, Flora Minkin, Gus Nemzer, Betty Elman Packman, Herbert Perlmutter, Gerald A. Rimmel, Dorothy Passer Roskin, Dr. Jeffrey Roskin, Harry Rosenblum, Albert Rothschild II, Michelle Bernard Samuels, Morris P. Sarner, Dr. Seymour Schlansky, Abe Schneider, Hyman Schnerman, Maxine Ruth Schukart, Joseph E. Silverman, Elizabeth Silverstein, Hannah C. Stein, Paul Troyman Sr., Charles David Weaver, Bertie Kaminer Wegeson, Morris L. Wyman, and Herman Willer. So with these names and the names we keep in our hearts, we turn to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach yirotei v'yamlich malchutei, chayechon v'yomechon, chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah, barach, dalam v'almei almaya, yitbarach, yishtabach,
יתפאר, יתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה.
v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
עושה שלום במרמה, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן.
The source of peace, and peace to all who mourn, and comfort all who are bereaved.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated. So a few announcements. Thank you, sir. First of all, thank you to our amazing ushers, Wayne Kaufman and Neil Marglis. I don't know if anyone has ever whistled like that at the pre-oneg before, and that was fantastic. Following our services tonight, if you have RSVP'd for the Shofar Society dinner, then you can go out those doors or those doors and head that way, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. This Sunday is the last Sunday of religious school, which is very sad, but also a little bit exciting. And there's going to be a sort of big picnic at the end of it. So if you have children or grandchildren who are in the school, or you just like food trucks, you can come and you can join us for our end of the year picnic. That morning, though, Rabbi Michael is going to be teaching an adult education class called Bible Stories You Didn't Learn in Sunday School, so you are more than welcome to join him for that. That is an adults-only class? Yes, indeed, adults only. So that's what makes it sound more risque than it is. So for our closing song tonight, not only did Rabbi Kushner died this week, but also Harry Belafonte died. And so we thought we would do a closing song that I think we did once during COVID. And this is not Harry Belafonte's song. It's from the Fantastics, and Jerry Orbach was the first one to sing it, but Harry Belafonte really made it famous. So I thought we'd do this one. Feel free to sing along. Try to remember the kind of September when life was slow and oh so mellow. Try to remember the kind of September when grass was green and grain was yellow. Try to remember the kind of September when you were a tender and callow fellow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow, 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 follow. Try to remember when life was so tender that no one wept except the willow. Try to remember when life was so tender that dreams were kept beside your pillow. Try to remember when life was so tender that love was an ember about to billow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember, although you know the snow will follow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember, without a hurt, the heart is hollow. Deep in December, it's nice to remember the fire of September that made us mellow. Deep in December, our hearts should remember, then follow. Shabbat Shalom.